This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined for this show by Jerry Strickmatter. Jerry, you were a former House of Representative member from Lancaster County, lobbyist, and now you are a member of the Susquehanna Valley Center Board, and you've done a good number of shows with us as well, so welcome aboard.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's going to be a great show.
Yes. Did you know that the American taxpayers spend 20 times more to support the Obamas than the British pay to support the royal family? Did you know this?
It's astonishing.
It is astonishing. It is astonishing. And when
I know you would always like us to have the parliamentary system where you could have a vote of no confidence. I think I've heard you say that a couple times.
Probably have, Jerry. But when we talk about budgeting and we talk about finances, what better people to have with us today to talk about Pennsylvania's budgeting and finances and Pennsylvania's government than the budget secretary and the policy secretary. And we're so happy to have you with us. We have Charles Zogby, who is the budget secretary for Governor Corbett, and Jen Branstetter, who is the policy secretary. We are so blessed to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Why don't we start out with you, Charles? The Pennsylvania, despite perhaps the popular perception of some in the state, seems to have pretty much of a sterling record when it comes to the economy and balancing our books and having our affairs in order in comparison to other northeastern states. And doesn't that benefit us when we go out to promote Pennsylvania as a location for new businesses?
Absolutely, Charlie. You know, when Governor Corbett came into office, he talked about getting Pennsylvania's fiscal house in order, and that's what we've been doing now with three on-time budgets. Trying to dig our way out of things like the pension crisis that faces our school districts. And we brought spending in line with available revenues, and that means that it's more money in taxpayers' pocket, more money in the pockets of business people to spend on their employees, to reinvest in their businesses, to help create jobs for more Pennsylvanians. And you see that in the numbers. We've had over 150,000 new jobs, private sector jobs, created here in Pennsylvania, shrinking the private sector, shrinking the state payrolls. And in each of our budgets, we've wrung out millions, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in efficiencies and productivity gains. That means that we don't have to go back to Pennsylvania taxpayers to ask them to send more to Harrisburg. They can keep it in their family or their business budgets, and we think that makes a difference in terms of jobs and the health of our communities across the Commonwealth.
And the states have really been hit by the federal policy of, being everything for everybody, and has affected all the states. But I see where Pennsylvania is. You've done a good job, being the policy director. If you work closely with the Office of the Budget in order to do that, and maybe you could tell some of the viewers, since our show's Behind the Headlines, to tell us a little bit about how you've been able to do that to sort of set the stage for us now.
Sure. I mean, I think Charles and I work very closely together, and our teams work closely together as Charles is setting out to put together the budget. We've been working with our agencies to put together different initiatives around reforming the economy, around public education, around healthcare, issues that are important to Pennsylvanians. We work closely to team it up and make sure that we can make the dollars and cents work, and then also make sure that we're delivering good public policy on behalf of the governor to the people.
Are there a few of those points that you would, maybe elaborate a little bit on that, sort of been a success story over the last, couple years that position as well, going into the coming years?
Sure. I think healthcare, for one, has been very important to the governor, and a lot has been said about the Obama administration and Medicaid expansion and taking so-called free money from the federal government. Worked closely with Charles's shop to try to get cost savings out of the Department of Public Welfare, out of our Medicaid programs, submitted a waiver to the federal government. The governor calls it Healthy Pennsylvania, which is a great way to increase access to affordable quality health care for uninsured insured Pennsylvanians. We have over 500,000 uninsured Pennsylvanians in this state. And the governor wanted to make sure that we could find a way that was fiscally responsible, sustainable for the future in order to get them into coverage, either bringing them into a Medicaid program that's been reformed, that's sustainable moving forward, because our cost to carry on the Medicaid budget is about $500 to $600 million every year. So we wanted to reform it, have it there for the folks who need it most, but then also bring new folks into a system, either into Medicaid or into a commercial plan, so that we can help them get back on their feet and get out into the workforce. So I think healthcare is probably one of the better examples of what we've been working on.
Going back to something that Charles said earlier to both of you, is how have the fact that the administration has had every budget passed on time and no tax increases at all over the course of the 3.5 years that Governor Corbett's been in office, how has that benefited Pennsylvania families?
Well, again, it's state government living within its means, just like families do every day with their household budgets. We've been doing that in state government, and the governor's put a premium on, again, treating every taxpayer dollar that comes to Harrisburg as if it's a family dollar, and spending that wisely, making good, prudent decisions about where we put our money. The governor's over the last 3 years put over $1.5 billion new dollars, for instance, into public education, investments in our schools across the Commonwealth. Things like teacher evaluation, trying to make sure that we have an effective teacher in every Pennsylvania classroom to help improve the achievement of our young people. And again, it's paying off. These are the sorts of things that the governor's emphasized, and I think he says that if we treat state money like families treat their own dollars, then we're going to be wise stewards of the public fisc, and that's where he's put his emphasis in these past 3.5 years.
That's one of the key responsibilities of state government, versus the federal, is education. Working with the local school districts. Have you found that you've been able to work at the state level with the local school districts, with the 500 school districts, in order to put in those cost savings, becoming more efficient? Has there been a good working relationship with that over these years, that we can look forward to seeing those gains going forward?
I think so. I mean, I think in the first budget, if you recall, when we were facing the crisis of, the prior administration putting close to $1 billion into our schools for the federal stimulus money, the governor called on school districts across the state, called on teachers, asked them to help with this crisis. Teachers across the state and many school districts did take a pay freeze that year, which was incredibly helpful, I think, as school districts were working to right size, as we were looking to figure out how we could more strategically drive dollars back out into our schools. So I think that's a good example of how we've partnered with them. And I think, too, along the lines of education, we've worked with school districts. Our Education Secretary, Carolyn Dumaresque, over the last 2 years, brought together thousands of educators and administrators from across the state to put together Pennsylvania's first school performance profile. So for the first time in Pennsylvania, people actually have a better understanding of the quality of the education that their children are getting, and they can see how we're strategically driving dollars into the classroom to make sure that Pennsylvania kids have every competitive advantage. So I think it's worked well.
I'll just follow up on that with the higher education. Though we hear about the debt, that people are having, and obviously, I think the applications to our state system, which is great. Our state-related schools, continue to rise because they see the value in that. Are we like a trendsetter, across the nation by having our state system of higher education, and have we worked with them effectively, to help our Pennsylvania students versus other states that surround us?
Well, we put more money into FIA, our Higher Education Scholarship Agency. The governor has a proposal in this year's budget, $25 million for Ready to Succeed scholarships. This is support that's targeted towards middle-class families to help defray the cost of post-secondary education. The governor also created a targeted industry cluster program. If you were a young person seeking to get a year or two training in a field where there's high demand out there in the economy for jobs, prior to Governor Corbett, you weren't eligible for any student aid. The governor created this program to make young people eligible for aid, and so we're able to channel high-performing high schoolers into programs where there's actually a job at the end so that they can go out, pay off their debt so they're not carrying that burden forward, and working in industries across the Commonwealth that, again, not only see the demand, but is going to allow them to get on those first rungs of the economic ladder to settle in their communities, grow a family, help contribute to their communities, just as we want for all Pennsylvania young people.
Secretary Branstetter, one of the things that's true is that probably if you're a political insider and you follow government closely here in Pennsylvania, I think if you're among the ranks of those, you might be familiar with some of the things that the Corbett administration has done to save on wasteful spending and to tighten the Commonwealth's belt. But I think this is a good opportunity to share with a wider audience with some of the things that the administration has done to cut just wasteful spending and to tighten our belts. Could you go over those items again for the general public?
Sure. We just actually hit a milestone not too long ago in the last 2 months where we've hit the $600 million mark in agency savings, where the governor went in, he actually created the Innovation Office, and he put together teams of state employees at every agency and said, you know these agencies, you know, better than we do. Where can we go in and where can we find cost savings? Tell us, can we consolidate printing functions? Can we consolidate our HR functions? Are there things that we can outsource? And we asked the employees themselves to help us put together a savings plan. So we just hit $600 million. And in fact, we've consolidated printing functions, you know, back agency functions across state agencies. One of the biggest things we did when we first came into office is the governor said, this is crazy that we have so many state vehicles. What can we do? I mean, not everybody needs to have a state car. You don't need a car to drive back and forth, you know, to work from home. So, and actually on senior staff, none of us took cars when we came into office. And since he implemented his new vehicle plan, we've saved $43 million on that alone. So he's really took that very seriously to get state government's own house in order.
$43 million in 3.5 years. We
did. He said he was going to cut the fleet by 10%, and I think we're actually close to 20% now that we've reduced the fleet for $43 million.
We're saving millions, too, on travel costs, where Jen mentioned the Innovation Office. That's another area. But we're also looking at just core programs and functions as well. Jen has been leading up an administration effort around Healthy PA. We mentioned that earlier. Saving $125 million, $130 million this coming fiscal year by reforming our state's Medicaid program. We've reduced the number of state employees in state government. So we've really looked at every agency, every area of state government. That's the mandate that we've had from the governor, and that's what we've been doing for the last 3 years.
How were you able to get Growing Greener going again? You know, because I saw that was in the news lately, that, you know, that's been, you know, funded where, you know, for many years we were sort of counting on that, but because of the federal downturn and you know, all the cutbacks and, you know, other things that affect, you know, budgets, that I noticed that was, you know, funded again. And how did that
Jerry, for our viewers, will you tell them what Growing Greener is?
Yeah, right. Well, I'll let the policy director, you know, talk about that.
You know, Jerry, I think as you both know, one of the riches that we have here in the Commonwealth is an abundance of Marcellus and Utica shale, and we're tapping that. It's not only creating jobs and economic development across the Commonwealth, but we have funds coming into the state government and a fund we call the Oil and Gas Lease Fund. And so the governor this year had an Enhancing Penn's Woods initiative, $200 million that we're taking in part from oil and gas, but other areas as well, and putting it into high priority state park and state forest infrastructure. We have state parks within a 20-minute drive of every Pennsylvanian. We have core facilities that have been left derelict for years. So we're taking some of those funds, turning them back into our parks and forest system to upgrade that infrastructure so that the millions of Pennsylvanians who go to visit our parks and forests can take advantage of them and enjoy facilities. And again, it's sort of that innovation of taking savings, driving them back into the enterprise for the benefit of all Pennsylvanians.
Okay, well, let's take a break here, and we'll be right back with the second segment of Behind the Headlines right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions to make the commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States, and by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by Penn Waste, your best local choice for your waste removal and recycling needs.
Hi, welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. And in this show, Jerry and I are being joined by the Secretary of the Budget, Charles Zogby, and the Secretary of Policy for Governor Corbett, Jen Branstetter. And we're so happy to have two secretaries at the same time. This is an embarrassment of riches, and we're so lucky to have them here. One of the things that has occurred recently, Secretary Branstetter, is the transportation bill, which was passed. The governor had worked long and hard, and I guess both of you had worked long and hard to get this transportation bill through. We have some infrastructure that's in need of repair. We have more bridges than any other state in the union, and they needed some help, and you folks got it. You want to talk a little bit about how you managed to get the transportation bill passed, and what does it mean for Pennsylvania? Ask both of you.
Sure. I mean, I think it was huge, a huge win for Pennsylvania. I mean, we had crumbling bridges, we had crumbling roads. One of the governor's biggest concerns, tens of thousands of children are traveling in school buses every day across these roads, and he was very concerned about their safety, about the safety of every Pennsylvanian getting to and from work, to and from wherever they're going in their travels. And he also, quite frankly, was very worried about. I mean, we've got wonderful goods and services that are produced in the state of Pennsylvania and getting them to market. I mean, in this transportation bill, it wasn't just about roads and bridges. There's money in there for rail. There's money in there for making sure that Pennsylvania is able to export the goods and services that are produced here. So he went to work hard, worked very closely with the General Assembly, with the House and Senate, was really pleased. It took a long time to get there, but we were happy to have that pass last fall. I don't think there's really anywhere you can drive in Pennsylvania right now that you're not stopped by a road crew, which is a good thing. Things are truly under construction.
That's what happened to us on the way here this morning, Jerry.
Definitely.
So it's nice. We're seeing progress, and I think that's really important. Our Secretary of Transportation, Barry Shoak, has done a phenomenal job of prioritizing which projects are the most important. Bridges obviously are of the utmost concern. In addition to the transportation bill, we also undertook a big P3 public-private partnership effort so that we were able to drive additional dollars out for bridges so that we can make sure we're getting to all the locations in the state we need to be. So, but it's great. The governor was really pleased with that.
And in dollars and cents, we're talking about nearly $800 million in new investments in our transportation infrastructure in the coming fiscal year. Part of the first installment on what is over a $7 billion investment plan over the next 5 years. And we all know, as the Keystone State, our roads, our bridges, our transportation infrastructure is the lifeblood of our economy, as Jen said. Companies trying to get goods to market, much less workers, and keeping the economy humming. So again, a great step forward, a good down payment this year, and I think we're going to see the results pay off in the coming years as these investments continue to roll out.
When you talk about, the coming trends, looking very bright, which is wonderful, and making our roads safer and getting goods to market, we were a great manufacturing state before, which meant that when manufacturing went down, with the federal policies of allowing dumping to take place over the years, and piracy and theft, and having to work through and bring manufacturing back, which I know that the administration has. Maybe with the roads, that's a big plus too. But maybe you could tell our viewers what are some of those other things, especially if they're thinking about doing it, and think about, oh, I'd like to bring manufacturing back. That Pennsylvania is open for manufacturing, and maybe you could tell them some of the things that have been laid out here that going forward that we would welcome manufacturing to go forward even faster than what it has been.
Sure. The governor, he travels all over. He's done trade missions to foreign countries. He meets with prospective companies either wanting to grow here or wanting to come into Pennsylvania. And he always says it's location, it's our workforce, and it's also our energy. Because to have a manufacturing resurgence, being home to the second largest natural gas field, it's huge. And we're seeing it happen with Procter & Gamble up in the Northeast, with companies all over the place coming back to Pennsylvania. We've actually undertaken a reshoring initiative where we're partnering with Walmart. A number of states around the country are doing it, where we're actually trying to bring the jobs that have left Pennsylvania and other states to go overseas, bring them home, bring them back to Pennsylvania. Since the governor took office, he's reduced business taxes by over $1 billion, helping small business, medium, large business, helping manufacturing companies grow. So as we're doing that, we're developing our natural gas. We're investing a lot in our public education system and our higher education system to make sure that we have a trained workforce. And we're located in the Northeast Corridor. I can't think of any place better to have companies come and locate and grow than what we're doing here. So we're excited. The governor's very excited about what we've been able to do over the past 3.5 years.
Yeah, part of the transportation plan that was talked about in a small way by many administrations over a long period of time was the whole notion of developing high-speed rail eventually between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Some plans had it going to State College, some plans did not. But there were missions of legislators that went to Germany and went to Japan, and lots of people took a look at this. Is this something that might be considered in the future, or not by the Corbett administration, or are we asking the wrong people?
I would say ask Secretary Shope on that one. I'm not aware of anything on high-speed rail. I know that we've made some investments in the Amtrak line particularly between Harrisburg and Philadelphia. But to your question, Charlie, high-speed rail, the ticket prices I see at least are in the billions of dollars, and a pretty costly endeavor for the state alone without major, maybe federal or private sector investment, but I'm not aware of anything on the drawing board, at least in the near term.
Lots of people don't understand that there are only 2 electrified rail lines in the whole country, and one is between Philly and Harrisburg. We're lucky to have it. And the administration has put some investment in that line, hasn't it?
Yes. And the one thing we haven't talked about here today as we talk about the economy is how much more we could be doing if we weren't facing the headwinds from the federal government. Our budget this year, we lost nearly $700 million in federal support or cost increases because of the supposedly Affordable Care Act. That's $700 million that we can't put into public education, that we can't put into higher ed or back into our transportation system, other critical areas. And the federal tax increases that we all saw in the beginning of last year has cut as much as $500 million from our budget. So that's another large chunk of money that, again, could go elsewhere in our budget, but we don't have it now. And so it's just these headwinds from Washington in the current administration there, I think, that if we had some more support in that area, the kinds of policies that the governor is pursuing would be that much more effective, again, if we weren't sort of facing a tidal wave of anti-growth and higher costs, less support out of Washington, D.C.
Hearing your responses today, I know the viewers have to be very optimistic, about the future. If they want to take that further and they have better ideas to do things cheaper, and more effectively, they have better ideas that they'd like to move their business out of the garage or out of the basement, into a manufacturing business site. How do they get in touch with you to do that? I know there's the innovation. I think there's other websites, but maybe you could tell that for our viewers, viewing this. How can they be in touch with you and the people that in the administration that we can help this become even better?
It's very easy. We've created paopenforbusiness.com. I believe it's .com. Great website. DC, our Department of Community and Economic Development put it together. It's designed to be a one-stop shop for anyone who wants to either open or grow a business in Pennsylvania. We can get you in contact with PennDOT to get you the right permits you need. DEP can get you connected with the Governor's Action Team for potentially some grants dollars available, get you connected to whomever you need. So PA Open for Business.
On the side of finding ways to deliver needed government services in a more effective way, which helps get the services out better and might even save money. Who do they contact in that regard?
Actually, I think if you would just go on to pa.gov, all that information is there and available to them. So, and if they want to contact the Governor's Innovation Office too with any kind of ideas, we're always welcome and open to new ideas.
And of course, there's always the legislators. They have their own legislative district offices
Sure.
for all across the state to do that. But I'm encouraged from what I've heard today.
Well, one of the areas that crosses both of your bailiwicks, of course, policy and budgeting and manufacturing, of course, would be the coal industry in Pennsylvania. And we've been called the Saudi Arabia for anthracite coal for many, many years. But yet we have the headwinds that Secretary Zogby was talking about from Washington, D.C. when it comes to coal. And this administration is making it increasingly difficult to utilize coal and for coal mining to go forward. What is the administration, what have you tried to do? What can you do in regard to working with Washington to try to minimize the impact that some of these proposed rules might have on our economy here in Pennsylvania?
Well, we try, right? So we reach out to the EPA all the time. The governor has reached out directly to the president on several issues. Pat Henderson, who's the governor's energy executive, also reaches out. We're in constant communication with the coal industry in Pennsylvania. It's such a vital industry. Lots of coal still left in Pennsylvania. I believe I've heard numbers of up to 50 years left of coal that we have. We'll continue to fight. We'll continue to push. I think Pennsylvania's a leader in clean coal technology. We've got a lot of companies who are bringing even more new technology to the forefront. So we'll keep pushing. We'll keep fighting.
Yeah, well, you need to, because I think last year we were like one power plant down, and then maybe the grid, was in jeopardy. So I mean, we can't afford to have this war on coal. Do that. So I think everybody in the state would like you to keep, fighting, to keep these here, because once they're gone, we can't get them back. If nothing else, reduce them, but keep them for sure.
I agree. We've got a great energy portfolio between our nuclear, between solar, wind, coal, natural gas. It's all here. So we're going to keep fighting and pushing.
Great.
Okay. Well, we want to thank both of you for being with us today and being with our viewers. And we hope that you'll be back soon. And we hope you'll be back soon. We hope you'll be back next week to watch us on Behind the Headlines. You can look us up on Facebook and Twitter and The Voice of PA. We hope to see you there. And we hope to see you again right here next week.